Well, I killed the battery last night. Turns out when I lock the handlebars, sometimes the headlight stays on, which is not a very useful feature. Thankfully, the employees of the parking area where I was staying were helpful enough to give me a hand push starting the bike, and it took several attempts because I forgot to put the key in and turn the bike on. But eventually we got it started, and in the process I did my first wheelie on this motorcycle, which was pretty exciting.
Heading out of Cartagena actually wasn't that bad. 90% of the traffic was headed into the city, which I greatly appreciated. But my exit was apparently not destined to be without a few hiccups.
Well, so far, I've had to get another jump since I stopped and turned off the motorcycle to get gas and it wouldn't start again. And then I accidentally stalled it in traffic by hitting the choke. So now I'm here getting the battery charged at a tire shop right in front of where I stalled it.
And since I was sitting at this shop with time to kill anyway, I decided to change my oil and do a few other routine maintenance things. One of the great things I've discovered about Colombia is that there are motorcycle shops everywhere. This may be linked to the fact that there are more motorcycles in Colombia than I have seen anywhere else on my entire trip. And you know what else? Motorcycles don't even have to pay tolls on the roads in Colombia. You get to just drive around the toll booth, which is great. But since the roads are toll roads, they generally are very well maintained, which makes for some really smooth riding. The last couple months kicking around Central America have basically conditioned me to believe that all roads come with a complimentary pothole service. And although these roads are certainly not without their obstacles, they make for a much less stressful and more relaxing ride, which I believe is exactly what the doctor prescribed after facing Panama City, Cologne, and Cartagena back to back. I ran into a Peruvian couple on their Ducati that had been on the ferry with me a few days before, and they invited me to come visit them when I get down that way, which I certainly plan on doing. By that time in the day, the temperatures had risen quite a bit, and we were all covered in sweat. They were planning to drive all the way to Medellin today, about twice as far as I wanted to go. I personally had had enough of the oppressive heat and humidity. I caved in and went to look for a hotel room for the night. I ended up in a pretty nondescript hotel in the pretty nondescript town of Monte Libano. And since there's no reason to linger in this place and the next day promised to be a very hot one, I decided to take off even before the sun came up. As I headed south, I soon found the terrain starting to change.
I've started to head up into the mountains. It's cold enough now that I actually need my jacket. A nice change after yesterday's drive through the scorching tropical lowlands.
For me, heading up into the Andes felt like running into an old friend that I hadn't seen for a very long time. And it has been a long time. It's been over a year since I spent 2 months driving around the Ecuadorian Andes with my girlfriend Gabby. But now that I'm back in the world's longest mountain chain, I can take comfort from the fact that, like a good friend, they will be with me for much of the rest of the trip. As I continued to gain elevation, though, the worrying fact that the clouds appeared to be getting closer and closer could not escape my notice. Eventually, I rounded a corner and found myself confronted with extremely reduced visibility. At times, the number of meters I could see in front of myself would have been measured in the single digits. I decided the best course of action was to get behind and follow a large truck, on the theory that the driver probably knew the road pretty well, and the truck was large enough to clear any unexpected obstacles out of the road. After an hour or so of doing this, the road dropped back down again, and the clouds cleared up just as suddenly as they had appeared, and I was free to bask in the verdant splendor of the steep mountain slopes.
Looks like I made it to the hostel just in time and missed one hell of a storm. There's thunder and lightning and rain coming down like crazy out there. I just got here about 5 minutes ago and it started about 2 minutes ago.
The hostel owner reluctantly let me park my bike inside, which I greatly appreciated. And once the rain let up, I decided to go take a walk around and see what I could see. Here in Medellin, much like Cartagena, the street art is incredible. I can safely say that so far on this trip, Colombia takes first place in the street art category by a wide margin. Which is nice, because dealing with the realities of Medellin otherwise would be a quite depressing prospect. The city is big, and the roads are crowded, and for a newcomer they can be quite confusing. But having something pretty to look at while you're stuck in traffic manages to push the situation just into the realm of tolerable.
Looks like I've come up against my first weather-related snag of South America. There's a huge storm cell parked right over Medellin, and it stretches all the way to my destination. So right now, all I can really do is sit and wait in my hostel and hope things clear up a bit later.
Fortunately, thanks to the glorious wonders of modern technology, I could sit in the hostel and monitor the clouds from space. And once things looked like they were going to clear up, I decided to try my luck and head off. I broke out my rain suit for the first time in a long time, but it turned out I didn't really need it because, just as predicted, the storm let up shortly after I left Medellin. And although the day got off to a gray and rainy start, it quickly turned into the best day of riding I've had so far on this trip. This ride was so perfect, it elicited an actual physiological response from within my body. My heart rate remained elevated for much of the time, and I was blanketed by a slight, warm, fuzzy feeling of euphoria. Any little bit of stress I may have still held on to was left far behind me, and the sinuous valleys unfolded in front of me with no end in sight. After my perfect day of riding, I arrived in Santa Rosa de Cabal. It's a pretty nice little town. My workaway host here is Hostal Colibri. Here, the workload is light and the schedule is flexible, which leaves plenty of time for exploring.
I've been having trouble finding my way here in Colombia because every time I stop and ask for directions, I have a really hard time understanding what anybody's saying. The Spanish they speak here in Colombia is a bit different than what I've encountered so far on the trip, and oftentimes I have no idea what's going on in a conversation. My hosts at Hostal Colibri pretty much insisted I take the afternoon off today and go check out some waterfalls. I'm not opposed to that, so I'm on my way.
The Chorros de Lolo waterfall is pretty impressive. It's about 100 feet high and plunges down into an angular basalt gorge. It's also pretty frigid here. Some of the locals were swimming, but I couldn't bring myself to do anything more than wade around. Part of my duties at the hostel include preparing breakfast and lunch for the employees and guests, and as a result I've been spending a lot of time in the kitchen. And even though it's not incredibly well equipped, I've still found ways to make some decent food and have a good time in the process. We took a day trip down to Cartago, where the owner of the hostel has another hotel, and I got a quick preview of my upcoming ride. And the place in Cartago had a pool, so I got to spend the day swimming around and getting extremely sunburnt. I felt almost guilty having so much free time, but I figured I should take advantage of the opportunity to relax when it presents itself. On the way back, we drove right into one of the giant thunderstorms typical of the area. Probably the most important thing I've learned from my stay in Santa Rosa is that this time of year in Colombia, I should definitely not try to drive in the afternoon. Also included in my duties is shopping, and I absolutely love the markets here. Because of the highly variable climate regions of the Andes Mountains, the produce here is also highly varied, and highly delicious. And much of the produce arrives at the market by fully sustainable bioreactor-powered vehicles. For personal transportation, you can ride around in style in one of the local taxis. Almost all of them are well cared for, chromed-out vintage Willys Jeeps. This is because as soon as you get out of town, the pavement stops, and you're left with a windy, muddy mountain road. And four-wheel drive is a pretty handy thing to have here, especially in the rainy season. This particular muddy mountain road is taking me to Termales San Vicente, which is a fairly well-developed cluster of hot springs, consisting of a cascading series of pools of varying temperature, and my favorite feature, a sauna built directly on top of a bubbling, boiling volcanic vent. Here they call saunas turcos, probably in reference to the traditional Turkish baths. Also, no running, watch your kids, and always remember to walk like a boss. My time here in Santa Rosa has been extremely relaxing, but now I feel the need to move on more strongly than ever, and there's a good reason for that. Her name is Gabby, and she's a mere 4 days' drive away. That's all for now. Thanks everyone for all your encouragement and support, and I'll see you guys next time.